Well, Professor James Allan holds the oldest named chair at the University of Queensland. He is the Garrick Professor of Law. Before arriving in Australia, he spent many years teaching law at New Zealand's University of Otago. He practiced law in a large Toronto law firm and at the bar in London. He's had sabbaticals at the Cornell Law School, at the Dalhousie Law School in Canada as the Bertha Wilson Visiting Professor in Human Rights, and at the University of San Diego School of Law. I have spoken to Professor James Allan often. He writes widely for newspapers and weeklies, including The Australian, Spectator Australia and Quadrant. But like me, he has commented regularly and recently on, quote, the Liberal Party drift ever further leftwards, on energy policy and the daft decision to sign up to the disingenuous net zero, on all freedom-related issues, on running the biggest spending and biggest taxing government in our history, on ever woker universities, the list goes on. Well, Professor James Allan joins me. James, thank you for your time. It has come to pass, has it not?
It certainly has, Allan, and thank you for having me, and good luck with your new venture here. I hope it's a big success.
Thank you. Those who saw the Liberals as Liberal in name only punished them on Saturday by not voting for them, didn't they?
They did, and it's not easy to do that in Australia. You have to be prepared to preference Labor ahead of the Liberals. Otherwise, Liberals get your vote. And it doesn't matter where you put them on the preferential ballot. So it's a protection racket for the two main parties. It's very hard to punish your side of politics. But we did.
You've written, I mean, there are a million things we could talk about, but you wrote about the Morrison claim, for example, that the pandemic saved 40,000 lives. And then you said this is to defend itself against the charge that Australia's pandemic response on the weld them in their homes end of the spectrum condoned despotism, police brutality and heavy-handedness, preventing citizens from leaving the country, unbelievably massive government spending needed after government itself forced businesses to close, and as you say, that is the main cause for the looming inflation, and then, quote, massive debts our grandchildren will be paying off. James, the public are not stupid. They objected and surely voted accordingly.
I hope so. I framed it as kindly as I could for Mr. Morrison. I mean, here's the thing. I just was I was so disgusted by how Australia handled the pandemic. It was so heavy-handed. They threw away the WHO rule book that had 100 years worth of data in late October 2019. And Mr. Morrison made up out of thin air this national cabinet. He never criticized Dan Andrews once. They kept feeding money to these heavy-handed premiers. And it's obvious now that the data is in that Sweden and Florida handled this properly. The deaths because of lockdown are going to vastly outnumber any deaths that lockdown saved. It was a disaster from start to finish. And I hope part of the reason they did badly was people punishing them. I really do.